I couldn't fix mine. Welcome all to another episode of Tech Leaders Unplugged. I'm Wade Erickson. I'll be your host today. And we have Filip Hric from, yes, I think I got it. And he is a consultant, speaker, and tester, worked with Replay.io of recent. And our topic today is the art of flaky tests. And so thanks so much, Filip, for getting unplugged with us today in our community and talking testing. And introduce yourself, and then we'll jump into the topic. And I want to hear what flaky tests are. I've been in testing a while, and that's a new term for me. So let's talk a little, jump into that, get a little definitions going, and then we'll just talk a little bit about testing.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the lovely introduction. As it was said, my name is Filip. I've been in testing for almost a decade, and my main focus was always either like QA or test automation. And as year passed by, I started to dabble a little bit more into Cypress and started teaching it and doing blog posts and stuff like that. So that's where, if anyone in the audience knows me, that's probably where they know me from the area of test automation in Cypress, because I've been a big enthusiast of this tool and having sharing my knowledge with the community. The title is very recent as a consultant and speaker, although I've been always doing that. If you were asking me 2 weeks ago on what my job title would be, that would be DevRel at Replay.io, which is a company I used to work with as of very recently. Right now, we actually had a layoff, so I was let go of the company among some of my friends and colleagues. Unfortunately, it's startup life. It's very hard right now for startup. So I'm assuming like there was a very hard decision to make. I believe that the decision was very hard to make, and I know it was hard to make. So no hard feelings there. But currently I'm on a job search. So if you're out there, if you have something interesting and you would make use of someone like me, let's talk. I'd be happy to talk to you.
Right. Let's get into what's a flaky test. So let's talk about the topic. Yeah. And I know that is tied to replay.io because I went to the website, and that people were in their comments were talking about this. So it seems to be a concept for sure over there. But why don't we talk a little bit about that, and then let's jump into a little bit about your work with open source testing, Cypress, and where things are kind of going in not only that open source tool, but maybe some of the new frontier with AI and stuff like that, and how that's affecting open source and open source tools and hosting of open source tools and all that. If you have any kind of insights into those questions.
That's a wide range of topics, so I'll better take it one at a time.
That's great. That's fine.
And so when it comes to flaky tests, right? There are many things that comes to mind of people when we say flaky tests. But in general, I think like the closest definition to something being flaky, or in other words, unstable, is when you have a test, whether that it's end-to-end test, unit test, API test, or whatever kind of test you have, and you run it a couple of times, and without any known change, it is not giving you the same result, right? So sometimes it passes, sometimes it fails. Some define flaky test as a situation where a test fails just once and it was previously passing, right? I think that's also a very good definition, because in ideal world, if there is no known change, the test, if you run it 1,000 times, it should give you the same result 1,000 times. If for the 1,001st time it gives you another some other result, it fails or something, then you could probably flag that as flaky or unstable. So, in my previous job, replay, this was a hot topic for us because we were working on a browser that could record everything that's inside it, as well as the runtime of the test and of the application that's being under test. So, if you had a situation where your test would become flaky, you could actually go back to that because you could have that recording available and take a look line by line into what is going on, right? And we as testers know, right? This is a situation we don't like to face, right? The thing when you write your test locally, then you run it on CI, and for some reason it started failing. Has that ever happened to you, Wade?
Yeah,
So,
of course. In test, everything
yeah.
can happen, and nothing's predictable 100%.
Yeah. And like oftentimes what happens on CI stays on CI, right? So nowadays we have moved to the world where we have all kinds of different tools that can help us, take the information from CI and examine it, which is a step in good direction in my opinion, especially when we talk about end-to-end tests, right? If you think about end-to-end tests, you usually have some sort of user journey, right? If you have like you need to define what are the ends of end-to-end tests. But if we're talking about UI tests, such as written with Selenium, Cypress, Playwright, you usually try to mimic some user behavior, right? Like if you have a to-do app, then the tests would open the to-do app, add a new item, hit enter, and then see that to-do item appear, right? That could be an example of a simple test, right? So when you have that user journey and you have a failure of your test, then that failure sometimes doesn't give you enough information, right? For example, element was not found. Well, which was the element that was not found? Why wasn't it found? Was it covered by other element, or did it not appear at all? Was it in the DOM, but it actually had opacity set to 0? Or did something happen way before, right? Did the page not load, right? Or was it covered by a loading animation or something else, right? So whenever we are writing end-to-end tests, we need more context. And as I mentioned, tools nowadays provide us like various amount of information about that. So Cypress has recently come up with their test replay functionality with their Cypress Cloud, where you can go back and examine what the test was actually doing as it was running on CI. Playwright has had their trace viewer, which is again like very robust, very useful tool that can give you the information on what the test was doing and how your application looked as it was being tested. So all these tools are like really helpful in order to make our tests more stable. And when I say make our tests more stable, the really nice appeal of replay was that you would not only consider yourself with what the test is doing, but also with what the application is doing. And I think, yeah, that was really exciting. But unfortunately, the company decided to go some other direction. But still, I'm still optimistic about the future of debugging our tests, because it seems like most of the tools that we have now, like Cypress and Playwright, are moving in the right direction when it comes to your ability as a tester to take a look into it. And I realize this is probably a way longer answer than you wanted
No,
to
that's right.
to the question of what is flaky test, but I also sort of painted a picture of like where we are today and what's the day to day of debugging a flaky test if
Right.
you're a tester right now.
So the way I'm reading this is that, yeah, in general, it just says that, it's a test that is not failing in a binary way, that either
Yeah.
you know where it's at. So it's a black and white. This is the gray area where your tests fail and your tool sets are not giving you proper feedback to help you trace to get to the root of the cause, which may or may not even be the platform you're testing. It could be the test itself had, some changes or something. So,
Yeah, and also
that makes
like if you think about it, if you have a test that you need to debug or you need to spend time maintaining, suddenly your test automation as a tool you're trying to use to help your company deliver new features, it is failing, right? Because why do we write test automation? To reduce human time
exactly
on
regression
delivery,
testing.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, so if your test automation is randomly failing and you need to spend a lot of time debugging it, your test automation as a concept is failing. So there are like lots of discussions on like which is the best tool that you should use, and you have all these benchmarks you can compare. And is Playwright faster than Cypress? Is Cypress faster than Selenium? Is WebDriver IO beating them all, etc. Right? It literally doesn't really matter, right? If your tests are stable and are passing and only failing when there's a genuine problem, then it doesn't really matter that much if they run in 30 minutes versus 50 minutes, right? That's a very small difference. But if your tests are super fast, let's say the whole test run takes 5 minutes and you have thousands of tests, right? If you have thousands of tests and 400 of them randomly fail, now you're going to spend lots of your upcoming weeks trying to figure out what the hell is going on. So
Has
now
nothing to do
the
with
test automation is not
yeah,
saving you time, it's making more work for you.
exactly. Yeah. So the quality of your testing itself could be an impediment to the efficiencies and productivity that you're trying to resolve and improve with the use of automated testing.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
So let's talk a little bit about the open source community, because it's, you're bringing up Playwrights, Cypress, Selenium, all the open source suites, and of course there's a lot of commercial tools out there, and I'm closely tied to some of the big ones, and they obviously are going after AI in a big way, spending a lot of money adding AI to test case design, using against user stories, all the way to low code, no code tools like we have that are um, using reusable test libraries to then maybe build that maybe 80% of that test script based on how it observes the UI and suggests that's still a few years out. The open source community obviously does not have the same kind of financial support in a lot of cases that those commercial tools have. So since you're close to Cypress, what are you seeing in the open source community as they are trying to stay in parallel to the feature sets that the commercial tools have?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think there is a different, slightly different value of what the open source stream sort of provides to the community versus what the commercial tools are trying to provide. Like there are definitely areas where they want to be in parity with each other, and I think that AI might equalize some of the areas and might make the gap bigger in some, right? I think one of the interesting things that's coming from this whole AI wave is that some of the tools get integrated into other tools, and some of the tools are going to fall behind. So let me give you an example, right? So I'm friends with Jonathan Canales. We were doing a live stream a couple of weeks ago. He's from Checkly. Checkly is an interesting tool. It's providing synthetic monitoring, and you can use your tests as sort of a monitoring check on your website. I think that's a really interesting concept. What they did is that they integrated Playwright into their tooling, right? So you can run your Playwright test as sort of a check on your production website to make sure that it is live, right? Sort of like similar tools have been out there.
It's heartbeat monitoring, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So like there are some similar tools that are out there that can do monitoring for you. Usually they do that by some sort of API ping, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Checkly does that with a test as well, and they provide more features as well. But the thing I wanted to point out is that they have integrated Playwright into their product because there is a way of how you can use it how you can sort of integrate it. You can easily integrate Playwright into whatever code, whatever thing you are building, right? Maybe you heard about Rabbit AI, like the small orange box. It was a product that you could sell, and it would like you could order an Uber or do whatever with it, and it would answer your questions. And of course, it was almost a scam, right?
Okay.
But what it was doing was using Playwright to do like some automated tasks for you. So if you try to order Uber, what would actually happen in the background was that it would use Playwright to like click through a real Uber page. Which of course didn't work because as soon as Uber updated their page, that functionality was bust. The thing I'm trying to say here is that when you have a tool that easily integrates into all of the other tools, you can also integrate it to the new tool we have here, which is AI, right? If I were to compare Cypress and Playwright in this regard, I think that Cypress has a sort of harder time to get integrated into something, and that's because like the architectural differences between these two tools, right? Playwright uses Chrome DevTools protocol to integrate with the browser sort of from outside, and Cypress does that pretty much like the other way. They open the browser, inject the Cypress code inside it, and then the test automation happens inside there, which is also like an interesting concept and gives you some advantages. So again, I sort of went off the rails with the AI question. The way I see AI right now, I think there's a lot of noise out there. It's really hard to find the good resources. But one of the things that I have found recently was this interesting article about sort of a new generation of AI developers. Like in a couple of years, there will be a lot of AI developers because you don't need to be like a data science person anymore to work with AI or know a lot about machine learning and all kinds of very complicated models. Because now with OpenAI and other like companies coming in, you pretty much have an API endpoint which you can call. You can give it context, right? and get information back from all of these large language models. So in a way, I see AI as being sort of an accelerator of what we do, right? At the end of the day, we're either shipping products that people are going to use, that are going to make their lives better, or not. And if AI can sort of speed that up and help you either deliver the software or make a useful service for your customers, then I think that is going to be an overall improvement. But as of right now, there's a lot of noise.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. These product companies, though, are obviously very challenged by the customer base, because the customers are saying, how are you applying AI? Knowing it's such a key piece. And if you don't have a good answer for that, the conversation might end pretty quickly. So, I think for the product folks, it is definitely it's in a unique time where normally you don't have these kind of broad changes to the IT spectrum. Maybe like, Microsoft releases some new .NET platform, or Java now becomes a priced JVM from Oracle. So there's a movement away from it, and you have to now change your tools to use the open JVM. Those kind of things are bumps on the road. This was a wave that was everybody's been caught in, and you really have no way to no choice but to address it within your product lines, for sure. All right, so we got about 5 minutes left here. I just wanted to kind of pivot a little bit. So you're a speaker and a consultant. Sounds like you've been doing that in parallel to your job. When you even have we're working at replay.io. So tell me a little bit about the, kind of this gig economy model where you do that. And if you could give some insights to some people who have really strong, capabilities and talents in a certain niche, because that's when speakers, the riches is in the niches, right? That's what they say. And, yours is in Cypress and testing and stuff. What advice would you give to some people that are really looking to kind of expand a little bit their brand in a certain area? Is it broadcasting? Is it blogging still? Or, what would you give them for advice to kind of get into this, to build themselves as a, thought leader in the space? And then we'll kind of wrap up.
Yeah. It's a good question. Like, sometimes I try to reflect back and try to see and understand what was my journey and how it started and like how it progressed. I was lucky enough to discover or like learn about the concept of learning in public pretty soon. And I found that idea to be really appealing. I pretty much like the idea of learning in public. So I'm learning something and I'm writing about the thing that I've been learning and sharing that with the internet as I go through that journey. I have realized that.
By the way, that is kind of a unique aspect to the internet, because prior to that, you had to be an expert to write the textbook. You couldn't be a learner and write as what you're learning, because other learners still can benefit from your journey in that area and say, hey, these are some things I found out, because it's a similar process, and they can kind of tag along on your journey and learn along the way, which wasn't the case before.
Exactly. And
you had to be an expert to get a publishing contract, and then you had to write a book, and and if it was critically reviewed. And now there's so much content out there, podcasting and blogging and stuff, that you can share while you're on the journey.
Exactly. And you can be like more granular, because you don't need to write a whole book. You can write a simple blog post, right? And I think that's really, really great, really powerful. One thing that I saw, and I still remember that tweet. Like I don't remember the exact details, but it was um, about the fact that there's a video somewhere on YouTube uh, about how to unzip a zip file, right? And it has like millions of views. And you may laugh at that, but there are people that need to have that problem solved
Sure.
because they have never done that, right?
Right, right.
And as I go through my learning journey and I learn new stuff, this week I have learned something I didn't know last week, right?
Mhm.
So sharing what I learned this week would be very useful for me last week. So anything you learn, anything you find out about is going to have value for someone. Like there are so many people out there searching for stuff, right? And and it's also going to be valuable for you as person who is on that learning journey, right? Because in order to explain something, you need to have slightly better knowledge about that. So right now I have an upcoming workshop about Cypress. As I was creating that Cypress workshop, I learned so much about like the little details I didn't know. Plus, when I had people on the workshop asking me about different stuff, that's where I found out even more things. And not only about the topic of Cypress, but also about how to actually give you the information in a way that you will understand it. So it you learn a lot by teaching, and also you learn a lot about teaching when you teach. So I think that's really great. And like it doesn't, like when you write your first blog post, it doesn't look like much, right? But as you progress, it adds up. And writing those blog posts that I did, and um, sharing the videos and social media updates and stuff like that, that was the thing that helped me get into conferences, that got me to network with interesting people. So I personally found this journey to be very, very fulfilling. And I know that there are people out there who feel like maybe this is not their way, and maybe it isn't, but um, I think you will be sure when you try it out. So my encouragement to anyone who's listening and they're sort of thinking on whether they should be doing this kind of stuff, I very much encourage you to try it out and to see if that works for you, and if it feels good. And if you have any trouble starting, I think there was my LinkedIn somewhere at the bottom of the page. Reach out to me and talk to me. I'd be happy to help you out with the first steps.
Great way to end the show. Providing value is, I think, very fulfilling. It's why we do this show.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, kudos to you.
and have guests like you to share with the community. You just never know who's going to stumble across the recordings and find them interesting to jump out on their own and start podcasting or sharing their knowledge. And I think it's when you help others, it starts to bring different kind of purpose to your life.
Yeah.
And like you said, teaching, the best way to learn something is to teach it, because those students are going to ask questions that you didn't ask yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, let me wrap up. I'm going to give next week's guest here is Dmitry Gumenik. I'm going to butcher the last name, Gumenik, founder of ReportPortal.io, head of test products and director at EPAM Systems. Topic's going to be AI and software testing, practical insights from test analysis to AI agents. And that'll be next week. And go to the events page on LinkedIn or your favorite social media that we share this on, YouTube and others. Twitter or X, I guess it's called now. So, but anyway, thank you so much for your time and sharing your testing knowledge with our community. And yeah, have a great rest of your week. And everybody else, we'll see you next week.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.